This video here will say, will say it all. If this is a trigger warning, there's no physical graphic, but if you don't want to hear parents talk about their child who just been murdered by the police, because I'm gonna take the headset off for a few minutes, because I watched this and I can't watch it without breaking down. So, but it needs to be played. So I'm gonna play it. And this is the next story we're gonna be talking about. Patrick Lyoya. I want to make sure I say that right. Lyoya. Okay.
Video hii.
By the time when I saw this video,
Roho yangu kabisa imevunjika.
my heart was really deeply broken.
Hapa naona kabisa ni maisha yangu, sina maisha.
Right now I'm seeing that I have no life. My life has come to their hand.
Maisha yangu ilikuwa tayari ni Patrick mtoto wangu.
My life was Patrick, my son.
Nilikuwa nawazia Patrick ndo sasa amenigomboa.
I was thinking that Patrick will take my place.
Lakini kuona kabisa ameuawa unyama na ule askari polisi.
And to see that my son has been killed like an animal by this police officer.
Kwa kweli kwa kuona hii video wametangaza.
And to see this video they show.
Hapa naona sina maisha, nimesikia roho yangu kabisa imevunjika.
I see that I have no life. I see my heart being broken.
Naomba sheria.
I'm asking for justice.
Naomba sheria.
I'm asking for justice.
Naomba sheria.
I'm asking for justice.
Yes. Naomba sheria kwa Patrick.
I'm asking for justice for Patrick. I don't know what to do. I cannot stop myself but for crying. All the mother here, our mother, you know the pain that we go through to give birth to a child. And as a parent, I was thinking maybe it was my son who's going to bury me. He will assist with my funeral. But what is so astonishing, I am the one burying my son. When we ran away from war from Congo because we were in an area that was not safe, there was a war. And I thought that I came to a safe land, a heaven, a safe place. And I start thinking now, I'm surprised and astonished to see that my son is here, that my son has been killed with bullets. I hear that I see my heart being broken really. So that was my beloved son, and you know how you love your firstborn son. And I cannot have another one who's going to replace Patrick. And for that, I need justice for my son.
So I'll pause it. I'll stop the video there. Another police shooting, and these obviously these are African immigrants. The parents don't even speak English. It is like Nick and I, we always say these stories are very hard because we keep having to revisit this stuff. So I'm going to go to Chuck. Like, what is your reaction to the story? What is your reaction to this? Yet another, police murder like this.
I think my reaction is almost always a form of abolish the police, that this is a entity that can't be reformed. It's real sad. We keep doing the same thing over and over and over. And, we have to look at police culture. It's not just that one man executed him, though it is that, as horrific as that is. It's that you have entire departments that co-sign it. You have entire departments that say this is okay. You have entire departments that will protect it. Let's go back to George Floyd for a second. What happened in George Floyd before the uprising? You had the other officers protect Derek Chauvin, keep people away. What happened with the DA, Mike Freeman? He didn't want to charge Derek Chauvin. They were trying to protect Derek Chauvin. They said George Floyd died of medical injuries. That was the first form that came out before Darnella Fraser's world-changing video came out. It took a mass uprising that included the people took out the Minneapolis Police Department for some action to happen. How can you reform an entity that cosigns such brutality, that cosigns such viciousness? It's impossible. And anyone who says it is possible is kidding themselves. So, I mean, I don't know. We just keep going through this, but you cannot be a humane person and say this is okay and that we could keep funding this. You're delusional to say that.
So
Thank you. Go ahead, Nick.
So I kind of fucked up because I went on Twitter while listening to this because, like I said, there's so many of these shooters I usually don't follow him that much. And then when you Google when you look up his name, at least in my algorithm, because I have a lot of leftists, everyone's algorithm a little bit different. If you look up this dude's name, you literally see the video. And I watched that. I shouldn't have done that, right? This was an execution, man. Jesus fuck. Like, Jesus. I'm literally just watching like maybe 30 seconds ago while you guys were talking. Like, this was a brutal execution. And you guys see why we cover these police issues on every fucking stream. And the reason why you see a lot of people continue to not cover this issue, they continue to be weak by this because they benefit from the white supremacist police state. Like Chuck said, there's no way to reform this because we went in the streets and we marched and we had Joe Biden invite boys to the White House, and then they gave the police more money, and then they started doubling down and killing, and now they kill more people this year than they did in 2020. They killing 3 people per day. And you guys think they can reform this? That's after all the reforms you got passed. George Floyd was killed after Minneapolis passed massive reforms 5 years before that. So the people who say we can reform this system, they simply don't want to.
So this can play in the background. There's no sound to this. This is the reaction. One of the many marches in reaction to this another killing. And I always think this is that the people that keeps defending this and like literally how many, this is like what, number 7 in like 12 months that have been national. It's been more than that, but I'm talking about national. Like are we still doing the bad apples? Are we like, how are we still doing the bad apples? Like we had 7-10 bad apples. Like I don't understand still the pushback against a transformative change. I don't understand that. Can you speak to that, Chuck? What is the argument against it? Do you think it's genuine, or do you think people just really want to prop up a system that they know is inherently racist and violent?
I mean, both, depending who they are. If they're on the right wing, they want to, prop it up. But let's talk maybe more about maybe the liberal thinking that says they're bad apples. How the whole tree is rotten. Again, I said, if you're protecting this, and we know when a police officer blows the whistle, that police officer could have their life threatened, endangered. They may have to quit their job. When that happens, they get rid of them. Now, what I would say to maybe a liberal person who's working, like, I'm an educator. I come out of education. And if I were working and I had colleagues, and I knew that my colleagues were molesting children and were molesting students, and I didn't say anything about it, but it was an open secret, and the principal knew about it too, and everybody in the department knew about it too and looked the other way, no one would say, Chuck, but you're a really good teacher, though. You're a really good teacher. Nobody would say that. Just common sense. Nobody would say that. So we have been brainwashed since birth. There's something about police who should have the highest standard of employment. That there's something different. They have the lowest bar of employment. We wouldn't say that about pilots. Oh, well, they just killed a few people. It's okay. Let's have more pilots crash planes. I think Chris Rock made that quip. We wouldn't say that. But so why are we saying it about police? And we have to unpack that, because there's some actually good people who believe they're good who are supporting this horror.
Absolutely. And again, like I have personal stories that involve the police. I have a personal story. My son's best friend was shot and killed by the police. He was 18 years old. Yeah, I'm gonna move on from that. So let me play this here. This is showing some of the protests. So I did want to show some of the protest that's happening. So because imagine if this happened and people weren't, that's what would really upset me. Like if this happened and then people weren't in the streets. But people are in the streets. So let's listen. Actually, I think this does have sound. Let's listen. So that's just another protest, and like the energy for this change that we all talk about on social media, the energy is here. There's still like a barrier.
We should never let the streets, man. Like, why would we leave the streets in the first place? I was screaming that when people got complacent because Biden won, and that
was key. His winning was key in kind of quelling some of it, not all of it. Like we're still hungry. Just stuff like this is sometimes it just makes me feel like hey, that's my daughters in the background. I'll tell them to be quiet. So if you're hearing noise in the background, I have 2 daughters they're on spring break, so they're home all day. So
let them have fun.
Yeah, I'll tell them in a minute, but that's what you hear. I'm gonna make this point, and then so that's what you're hearing bumping around, and we have a cat and a hamster, and all of that is wrapped up outside of my bedroom door right now. So that's what you're hearing. But back to the story. And we're gonna have on Wednesday. We're gonna have a conversation with Dr. Kareem and Dr. Kareem Batesh and Dr. Anthony Zunkas, and it's trauma. The topic is trauma from the police state. Like his family, you see his family. I can't hear that because it is reminiscent of my own life, but his family, like that is a lifelong trauma. I mean, look at me. My brother wasn't killed by the police, but he was murdered. I was 13? Like right now, it's still fresh right now. So I'm just thinking of the long-lasting trauma that your loved one is murdered by the good guys. Like what type of justice are you going to get when the person who has killed you, your murderer, is labeled the good guys? Like really, what justice? Even if they really, what are they going to do? Manslaughter? Like, are we going to get a first degree premeditated murder and they're going to jail for 30 years? We're not.
Hey CJ, if you don't mind, let me interject this real quick.
Go ahead.
Imagine how bad it was 20, 30 years ago, where police were truly held as heroes. And because the reason why I say this, because it was a few months ago, I covered this story where last year, and I would love to see the numbers for this year. Last year, they was breaking police resignation records, and I covered one article where they interviewed a lot of police, and one of the reasons why they said they quit is because they feel like there's been a change in the culture, because as we reported on our show, a lot of people want to defund the police. Like 55% independence, 74% independence. The amount of support that the police used to have in the public had dropped significantly. Like back in the crime wave era, the crime bill era, that's what police was like truly probably at their peak in terms of public relations. Now imagine it like having to fight the police state before the internet, while they were at like the most popular. And now they are starting to slowly see that prestige that they used to have because of propaganda is starting to go away. That's why they had to make an example of Derek Chauvin. And we see, but they probably had to make an example of this person because if this becomes big, they will. They may make example of people that they cause a big panic. But you see how they like let Breonna Taylor's killers go because that story started to die down. The Mirror Lock story, they waited for a while and they let them go. So maybe we will see justice here just because this story gets so big. And but we'll see. But I'll pass it back to you, CJ. I just want to add that part to it. Make sure you check your audio.
What do you think, Chuck, about what does it reflect on our society that in the narrative, in the Americans' narrative, the good guys are killing people? Are you there? Okay, you still there? Like, what does it say? How does that reflect even in their own narrative?
We can't hear you. I think you. Yeah, he probably had to refresh.
Yeah, but so I can pose a question to you. Like, what does it say in their own narrative? Like your own movie, Nick. This is your movie, and you're saying the good guy is this. That's what you're saying. But that good guy just killed this. Like, you get what I'm saying? There, it has to be, even in their own narrative, there has to be some people that is going like, you get what I'm saying? Do you feel like there's some of that a little bit, even with the internet and with these videos we are able to see this now? Do you feel like, because people of color already knew this. We're here. We've been here for decades. Like, welcome everybody. You get what I'm saying? So do you feel like it's getting there? Do you feel like it's breaking through those people who have believed that facade?
Well, if you had asked me this a few years ago, I was very optimistic. If you had asked me this at the George Floyd uprising, I was more optimistic than I've ever been, because I saw something I never saw. Covering DC for 10 years, other places too, Ferguson, other places, but covering specifically DC protests since Trayvon Martin. And you could go, and we had a big solidarity uprising with the folks at Ferguson in DC. That happened. And then George Floyd happens. And the first time that I saw white people, white kids in mass in DC come out like what, anger, right? Like F the police. And I had never, ever seen that before. And I was getting so optimistic. And I had some other things that came out against Nazis too 1 year. I mean, huge masses of white people joining in solidarity. So I felt very, very optimistic. But I don't know how much of that. And by the way, some of that, where you have some young kids today who grew up on these videos, that were in grade school when we saw these videos, when Mike Brown was killed, not that was on video, when the Baltimore uprising happened. So they don't have to do a lot of unlearning. And they came out in mass. But there's a Trump aspect here. We saw white people come in mass when Trump was president. Trump was ugly. And I can't tell you how many times I saw on my Twitter timeline, someone would say, yeah, Trump's America, Trump's America, Trump's America. I'm like, no, that was actually MPD. That's the local police department in the Democratic administration led by a black woman. I know you don't want to hear that stuff, but that's the reality of it. And half the police in DC are black. I know you want to hear about that. And they were taking orders because they took orders because they want to have a good job evaluation and all of that. And that oppression had nothing to do with Trump after the first couple of weeks in DC. So you have
black
to
cops
get
are the
your mind
worst.
around that this is oppression. That's not just Trump. And we saw when Biden became president, that helped extinguish a lot of that resistance. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we're gonna fund the police more. Like, what what I think about that comment, I'm throwing this in there. What I think about that comment, because it's on the police state, is that because it was such an awkwardly placed it was completely unneeded in the speech. Like, it was no need to talk about that in the speech. It was specifically placed to say to white America, don't fear. It's okay. Come on, guys. We're not gonna defund the police. Come on, guys. Come on. So we're funding the police. That was a clear message to white, the white voter, the white America. They're always saying we're going after, instead of going after the other people that that could be engaged if they just simply had something to offer.
And you want to know the response to that, CJ?
Oh.
You want a response to that? The biggest demographic drop for Joe Biden is, guess who? Black people. You see, CJ, everyone been running stories about how Joe Biden has had a historic drop with young people. But I'm looking at the poll like, bro, the number is way larger with black people.
Why they don't want to report that? They don't want to report that.
And I'm just asking the question to you guys, why they do that? And that I got a few stories I'm gonna cover, and that's gonna be part of that as well. We really get to more detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the question I'm asking you guys right now. Why do that?
I didn't know that till you mentioned it.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you guys. It's in the same poll that everyone been referencing. The same. Poll. Anyway, go ahead, CJ.
Maybe this is a good segue. I do have one final thing to say about the Patrick, because there's not any more news on the story, so it's not more news that I can play. Like, we all know what's happening. He's been shot. Nothing. They just put out the video cam, and that's why it's a heightened, sort of interest. But as far as information, as far as newsworthy progress of the investigation, all that type of stuff, there's not anything new. But I felt like we needed to talk about it, because this is like, it's what also devalues Black lives is the fact that it keeps happening. Do you understand? Like, because it goes like this, it happens, we get all mad, and we go to the next time it happens and do the same thing. Just the process devalues it, even if we're not trying to do that, because it keeps happening, and we're not doing anything about it. So we're saying as a society, we're kind of okay with this. That's literally what we're saying, and we're accepting that these lives are devalued, because we go, it's sad, and it's nothing we can do. And that's something that the duopoly has also taken us the ability to affect change. Like, everybody, like, we should be able to say, go and affect change in a month. We should be able to go do something, go protest, and there's a reaction from our government, but our government has no reaction. They just go, let them eat cake. Let them do this. They want to be out there. Okay, as long as we create this barrier, put them away, and let the peasants, they're upset. Let them do that over there. Like, literally not paying attention to us. And I don't know what the literal quote, and I'm going to pass it for Chuck to kind of just weigh in. But if you don't provide for a people to have their grievances redressed, then you're setting up the concoction for a revolution, and quite possibly a violent revolution, because you're not allowing people to gain change through a normal civilized process, because voting is not doing it. Can you speak to any part of that, or all of that, or anything that came to your mind, Chuck, that?
Well, first of all, thank you. And what came to my mind, and I've said this many times, is that I'm a believer in protests. And a lot of people say protests don't work. And I always say protests don't work if they're not long enough and strong enough. But we had some nuggets. Colleges were kicking police out of their universities. They had police contracts, and they were cutting them out all across the universities. We knew Colorado ended qualified immunity. I don't know where that stands now. We knew in Seattle and Austin, a couple of places, and Minneapolis were having some headway into defunding the police. I'm not saying these are gargantuan changes or anything like that, but what I'm saying is the ball was moving in the right direction. And then when Biden became president, we took our foot off the gas pedal. And that then the reverse happened. That energy went into protecting Joe Biden, and the resistance died. And now you have a man who is not named Donald Trump who could say fund the police 3 times and people could actually defend this insanity. That's ridiculous.
Nick, unless it looked like you were looking up something, were you looking up some receipts or something? Because I wanted to get, because you of everybody on the network, you report on defund the police, just the police state. I feel like you do the most content
almost every day.
Yeah, on it. So because this is like everybody, we're as leftists, we all have that 1 or 2 issue that just gnaws at us, and it's like, and I feel like the police state with Nick is that. But can you speak to all of what we're talking about? Also, go ahead.
Yeah, because to me, that was one thing that exposed our society more than anything. And especially growing up Black, we always had different experiences than the overall white America. And that's what you spoke to earlier when we, like, a lot of people are shocked now because of the internet age. Like, you got to get to see the videos, but we used to write about it in our poems, in our rap music, in our jazz songs. Like, this has been stuff in our literature for decades and decades, talking about police violence. Black Panthers was calling for the police abolition, the separation from the police and the way the community defense system works. This is not new for the Black community. Like, white America is just now catching up. So when people used to talk about America being this free state, even though we imprison 1/4 of the world's prison population, we're this free country, but you're getting locked up from weed. I got people going through shit. I got people that they are law-abiding. They are a productive member of society, but their life has been effectively ruined because they had pot. They had weed on them. I'm talking about people that are really close to me. Like, I talked to a friend, let's say that. And this friend, he's going through a lot of legal problems in his life. And I didn't actually know that much about it. But one day we finally sat down and talked about what the hell's going on. I'm seeing you in probation all the time. And he's like, yeah, they call me with a weed bag. What? That's it? This whole thing started because of that? And then it extended because he like broke probation because of like some other drug related charges or some. I don't know the full story, but the whole thing. I mean, I'm talking about this lasted like 5 to 6 years. He had a hard time getting jobs. His life was ruined, and he was treated like a criminal. And he not as radical as us, actually. Funny enough. And I remember in our conversation, he's like, "Man, I keep fucking up, man. I need to get my shit together, man." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe," but at the same time, they kind of like, why would they even do this to you? This is why when I talk to people in my life that are a victim of our state, I'm literally saying like, bro, this is not your fault, man. Like, I had a friend that was he been poor his whole life. Like, I don't understand why I can't get ahead. And I'm like, bro, this is not your fault. The same talk I had with my cousin. So that's why I'm passionate about this issue. And you see, when you look at Black Marxists and Black leftists, this is what we cover. Like, this is what we talk with other people. They like, we don't talk about this that much. This is the main shit we cover. And I can connect this to any issue I'll talk about. This is connected to capitalism. This is connected to imperialism. The whole society that we are like fed this sham. I saw through it immediately once I learned about the police state, learned about the prison industrial complex. Okay, everything I was told about this country is fake. Like that, it was, and that's how I think a lot of Black radicals especially in our age group, feels like. That's kind of what exposed everything.
But let me ask you, Nick, when did you make that more radical turn against police?
I always hated the police. I couldn't articulate, and I didn't know what was possible. Like, I wasn't an abolitionist when I was a teenager because I didn't think abolitionism was possible. Then you read Angela Davis. Then you read the work of many Black radical leaders who wrote about this stuff. You learn from abolitionists like my friend Lyoya, Awkward, and you're like, yeah, this makes sense, of course. So I co-founded Tender Man's like three years ago now. And I've been advocating this for a long time, but even in high school, I knew the system was bullshit. And the thing is, I can't even tell you the first shooting that did it. How sad is that? I just remember like constantly hearing story after story after story. Then I saw Zimmerman. This is what really, like, I remember the Zimmerman thing really, like, all right, I hate this society. I want it to fucking burn. Because Zimmerman executed, I'm forgetting his name.
Trayvon,
yeah. So Zimmerman murdered Trayvon, and I seen this system. It's brutal. Like I got friends and family that is in the system suffering because they had weed. I seen our community being over policed. We get harsh sentences. Then one of ours get executed by the state. They're like, nah, he can stand his ground. Then I'm like, all right, so this society got so many hypocrisies. It's not even worth defending. I want to carve it up. Like I want to carve it up with revolution and sprout a new seed. Like I'm not even for reforming this shit. And people wonder why I got the politics I have. That was literally led me down the road. Like now I learned the police connected to imperialism. Now I saw George Bush destroy and bomb Muslims. Like, oh, this shit, they're doing the same thing over there that they do to us. Right? So anyway, I want to pass the siege. I see you got a clip here.
Yeah, because this clip came to mind when you talked about some of the demands that the Black Panthers had. And one of them was, several of them had to do with the police state or, you know, the justice system. So he kind of names, he names like, I think 10 of them here. So let's listen to some of the demands Black Panther Party right here.
The 10-point program. Number one, we want freedom. We want the power to control the destiny of our Black community. Number two, we want full employment for our people. Number three, we want an end to the robbery by the white man of our Black community. Number four, we want
most white Americans saw only their guns and heard only their violent rhetoric. But Black militant groups like the Black Panthers were the demanding voice of a younger generation that had given up on Martin Luther King's nonviolent tactics. Their implied threats of violence and their radical political agenda made them extremely frightening to mainstream America.
Their implied threats of violence.
It's so subtle, man. God damn. Well, not really subtle to us, but they just dropped that shit. I think a lot of like white people probably don't.
Right, but it's the implied threats of violence instead the implied threats of self-defense. I think that would be a more accurate way of describing it. But let's listen more to the 10 Pro program, Black Panthers.
by a jury of their peers.
Oh, this is the part. This is the part I want to hear you hear.
We want all Black people when brought to court.
America. That had given up on Martin Luther King's nonviolent tactics. Their implied threats of violence and their radical political agenda made them extremely frightening to mainstream America.
Number 9, we want all Black people when brought to court to be tried by a jury of their peers or people from their Black communities as defined in the Constitution. Number 10, we want land, justice, housing, education, clothing, and peace. And as a major political objective, a United Nations supervised plebiscite to be held throughout the Black colonies of America, in which only Black people will participate to decide or determine the will of Black people as to their national destiny. Right on, brother. Right on. Right on.
But now you hear, or I can hear, why they had to take the Black Panthers out. You can hear a message that resonated at the time. You see the people responding to it, and they're Marxist-Leninists. This shit can't happen. This shit can't happen. But it's always inspiring when I see these clips of the, Black Panthers. But the point that I wanted to make, I've been playing this video, was the part where he says one of the tenets was Black people to be tried by a jury of Black people, of their peers. He wants all the people, I don't know if it's this video or if he said it already, all people in jail to be released. Like, this is the demand. These are, to me, are the demands of a revolutionary, or revolutionary demands. And I just feel like this is the sort of thing we should be doing about the police. And this is why we should keep on with defund the police. Don't change the slogan so it can't be co-opted, because defund the police can't be co-opted. And that's part of the reason why they want it gone.
And this is why,
can you speak to that, Nick? Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, this mindset is literally the mindset we had 10 demands. The reason why we co-founded 10 demands because that was when George Floyd protest was going on. And we said, we need to bring a local list of demands and we need a plan of action on how to get there. And the one last thing I'll say on the clip, and I'll pass it back to you guys. Now you guys know why Black Marxists always scoffed and scorned at Black Lives Matter. And I became extremely distrustful of them because compare them to what we just saw in that clip and their demands for Black Lives Matter. Like, maybe we just vote for Democrats, they can help us out. And then they literally sent out a victory statement when Joe Biden won. And then they were literally taken over by Hillary Clinton Democrats. And then they spent $6 million on a mansion. They became capitalist and became corrupted by the system because why? They did not have revolutionary discipline. There was a organization that was hijacked and still believed capitalism was a route to our liberation. The Black Panthers was not having that shit. And that's why the Black Panthers wasn't allowed to exist while Black Lives Matter was co-opted. And the people who started it and sold out became millionaires. That's the reward, right? So I'll pass it back to you guys. That's the only thing I'm going to say on that.
I'll give you the final word on the police state, defund the police, Patrick Lyoya, any other, sort of police justice issues that we're having that you want to talk about before we have Nick go to the next topic.
Okay. Well, we have to talk about DC when you talk about defund the police, because the activists in DC are the people who painted defund the police on the ground next to Black Lives Matter Plaza. And you could see a spike in mainstream media attention. They never spoke about it before then. Now, it was in activist circles. It was in academic circles for years, if not decades, but it wasn't in mainstream media circles. The activists in DC did that. And we have to, name that. And I have a test for people who say, the liberal who says, well, I agree we have to cut funding and rerouting it, but I don't like the defund the police slogan. When someone tells me that, I always ask them this question. Okay, what is your preferable slogan? And wait and hear back what they say. And nothing about their alternative has to do with cutting funding for police. They might say reform it. They might say demilitarize it. But you told on yourself because you don't want to cut it. You want to run away from that. And we're making you confront that. So you want to change the slogan. If you gave me a better alternative, I'll listen. But I don't hear it.
What's even worse is their solutions usually provide we need more training. And then they create a new training program to pay psychopaths like Dave Grossman. Like when they do this training, who you think they're being trained by? They've been.
Why don't you talk about Dave Grossman for a little bit, Nick?
I remember that video.
We covered Dave, and I got to dig through some receipts so you guys see this dude speak, man. One of the most psychopathic people you can speak. He wrote this book that's extremely popular, and he created this ideology called Killology, which is an ideology of cowards. So the whole ideology is if you ever feel like your life is in danger, because and this ideology is designed for police and military, but he says those are connected and intertwined. So if you're a policeman, you essentially do the same thing as of someone in the military because you are at war. That is what he emphasized. He said you are at war, and the subjects, aka the quote unquote criminals, are people that you cannot give benefit of doubt about protecting you and protecting quote unquote the public by having a shoot first, kill first mentality, question stuff later. And people wonder like, oh, it's a bad apple. How can you say it's a bad apple when these people are being trained and there's videos that show that this guy is a celebrity? Like not like he's like an odd figure. Like he gave speeches in one of the videos I saw. Like there was like a line of cops looking for his autograph. So it's like not like he's not just an educator. He's like a Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson like type among police officers. They look at his ideology. They're like, hell yeah, this is how police should be. So when you guys say you want to,
he's like Karl Marx, but for police.
Yeah, for police. Yeah, they ever since he released Killology, and there's been many reports of police implementing this in their training. He's giving seminars to people, and he is but just one. He probably the most prolific example of this. But there have been other stories and videos I reported on before. When you listen to police officers in training and how they speak, and there was one dude who was like joking about a police killing and undermining. Like these people are psychopaths. How do you think you get that job? And also one thing I want to point out, and then when we can move on, a lot of times they're like, we're gonna have this new training program so the police can better serve the community. and then they allocate more money to the police for that, and then they just take the excess money, which is usually a lot, and they just give it right to the pensions. So they like pocket and they get a raise based on something they should have been disciplined on. Damn, you fucked up. You killed somebody, so we're gonna punish you by giving you more training, and then they increase your pay by that. Do you guys see how crazy the system is, and why anything other than the road to abolition is nonsense?